Welcome back to Earth and Star Spiritual Wellness Center. You know me, Mary, your friendly neighborhood preacher teacher, and today I want to talk about organized chaos. I woke up this morning with this quote in my head from when I was young, little, like elementary school. Don't ask me how I knew this quote at that age, I just did. But the quote is that life is organized chaos. And I just woke up with that in my head this morning. I couldn't even remember the life part, just organized chaos. Organized chaos was in my head when I woke up. And I was like, Spirit, what does this mean? And I was thinking about everything going on right now. So a lot of the time when we get on these spiritual channels or you get with this spiritual teacher, what we're hoping to get you to is transcendence, oneness, this space way up here, right? But that space way up there is something that's not fully obtainable when we're in our human form. And that's important to remember. That is supposed to be our anchor point, our center point, while we navigate everything that we're navigating here in the physical realm, in the human realm, in the 3D. Now, organized chaos, I just want to give you the definition of this. Organized chaos is essentially a situation that appears to be disorderly or chaotic on the surface, but it actually possesses an underlying structure of order that allows it to function effectively. So this is a messy system that allows for progress and the achievement of goals. The chaos suggests a lack of structure. So this could be anything that appears messy or out of control, right? But despite that appearance, there is an implicit order. There is this pattern underneath it all that creates a function, a system capable of achieving intended purposes or creating that progress. Now, I want you to keep that definition in mind while we talk here, okay? So, like I said, there's this thing up here, which is oneness. It's transcendence. It's everything and everyone is one thing. It's the being above the emotion. It's being above the yin yang. It's being above the right and left and right and wrong. And it's above it all. It's just oneness. And like I said, that's actually not completely obtainable here on Earth. It's just not. That is our anchor point. We want to work our way up, bring our energy up to that point to where that's like what's in our spine and anchored into our root space down beneath our feet so that we're connected to the heavens, to the oneness, to the unity, to source energy, understanding all angles and sides of everything. But we're also connected to Mother Earth here. My mama is beneath my feet and my mama is organized chaos. My mama has hurricanes, has waterfalls, has tornadoes. She's destructive, but the entire time she's creating life over and over and over again. This is what she does. She does nothing but create life. She gives. She's abundant. She has everything that we need. And the destruction is simply the chaos within the underlying pattern of the life cycle, because we have to die in order to be recreated over and over and over again. This goes for all things. But now on the human level, if we were to look at this from the perspective of our emotions or even what's going on politically or in the government, collectively in our society, there are things happening that seem to be very chaotic. And there's a difference between organized chaos and like chaos. And in the world of physics, neither of them actually exist. They're simply states of mind. So while the government might be creating something that feels like chaos, they do have that agenda underneath for what they feel to be progressive, for the goals that they want to accomplish. Now, moving back to society or the people who don't agree with that, what are we doing here? There may be protests. There may be other things coming up that we do that, and I want to throw this out there. Everyone's all for a peaceful protest, right? Everyone wants peace. Nobody wants war. Ever. Nobody likes war. But there's a sweet spot, okay? There's a sweet spot, kind of like when you drink a glass or two of wine, but stopping yourself right before you get wine drunk, right? You don't want to be sloppy, but you want that little wine high. That's organized chaos, okay? That's organized. Here's another example if you're a non-drinker. If you have children, maybe, they do best in an environment where they can run and scream and climb and jump and do whatever they want. And it appears very chaotic, but you as mom have given them the space to do that in. It's a confined space, a space where they won't disappear or fall in a hole. And it's within a time constraint. They're probably only allowed to do that for an hour or two. And then they go back to something else. So what that does is it gets their energy out. It gives them the opportunity to grow their muscles, to problem solve, to think for themselves, to create imaginary things, and to live this wild life in a safe way. So that's the sweet spot, right? That's the sweet spot we're talking about. So if we're trying to combat what this goal is over here with a different goal, maybe a goal more aligned with what we feel love is, because it's all about love, it's not all about peace. Write that down. It is not all about peace. And you know what? It's me, oh Lord. Standing in the need of prayer, honestly, because this is just how I feel right now. Next week, I might give a completely different message on peace. But right now, it is not about, type it out. Life is not about peace. It's about love. It's about love. And if we love our neighbor as we love ourselves, if we have love, if we're not focused on us, but focused on love of the world, love of the planet, love of the animals, love of the peoples, then we might have a slightly different goal than those people over there. So what do we have to do to get that seen? Create a little chaos. Mama and Papa, create a little chaos, but in the sweet spot. Okay, so we all love a peaceful protest. That's what I was saying. We all love flowers. I really do. I really do love flowers and hugging trees, like running barefoot in the mud, like that's my jam. That creates awareness. Yes, it creates awareness. I like the sweet spot type of protest. Okay, so not a violent protest. That's definitely not what we want. But to me, a sweet spot protest might look like one where there's walking, running, chanting, yelling, screaming, the expression of emotion, but you stop before you do anything out of control, before anything violent happens, before you become the person you're trying to combat. You allow a safe container for you to express the fullness of what you feel is happening without becoming the person that you're trying to combat. I love protests like that. I think they're great. The sweet spot, we have to be, because what it does is it keeps people a little on edge. They don't know what's going to happen next. They don't know if this is going to turn one way or the other. You know, because you know you're not that person. And you know that you're not going to hurt anybody. You know that you're not going to reach a fever pitch that you can't come back from. But you also know you're going to be heard. And you're going to put this out there. And you're going to make sure that you create just enough chaos that people are watching. That you're getting attention, that they're like, what's going to happen next? Is this going to stay this way? Is this going to turn on a dime? What's going to happen? And everyone's watching. Everyone's on high alert. Everyone's paying attention to you. And then you end it in a graceful queen manner. Not the off with his head part, but like the I said what I needed to say, now leave kind of thing. That kind of queen manner. There's the sweet spot to all chaos, okay? And this is what's happening everywhere. We have chaos within our own growth because there's different paths. Now, I will say within the different paths that we have, there's different ways of self-sacrifice, I would say. So if you're on a left-hand path, and just for clarity, a left-hand path is your darkness, shadow, chaos path, you probably control yourself a lot less than someone on the right-hand path. And if you're on a right-hand path, this is usually filled with light, with love, with helping others, service, things like that. And you know, this is what we think about a lot when we think of like nuns and stuff like that, because they do a lot of self-sacrifice. They don't get married or have children or engage in activities that might seem a little dark. You know, like they stay in the light. And then you have the middle path, which is the integrated path of light and dark. And Buddhism, there's a lot that is taught about the middle way, where they try to be completely balanced or neutral with the light and the dark, with the right and the left paths. And this is needed. So like, there were many different sects or sections made of Buddhism. The very first group of Buddhists were so up here, they were so spiritual and introspective that society around them began to collapse because they were only paying attention to their spirit form. Then they had to make another sect that focused more on community, service to others, because without that, without the feeding the human and the compassion part, everything falls apart and everything eventually becomes poor and barren. To create life, you have to feed life. You have to flourish and nourish life, right? And life is organized chaos. This is what it is. So this is how we are as humans too. If we're on a left-hand path, then these are like the people who I might call like the chaos magicians, or even you don't even have to have a spiritual left-hand path. You can just be on a left-hand path and not know it. If you're on a left-hand path, this might be where you're really submerged in the baser urges of nature. You know, there might be a lot of sexual things in your life. There might be a lot of opening to the darker elements of life. There's a lot of the time on the left-hand path, things like depression or sadness, the lower vibrating energies. And we can all evolve through all three of these paths as well. So that's something to keep in mind. But some people on a spiritual level choose the left-hand path. They want to do the darker arts. They want to involve themselves in those darker entities or energies. And within the balance of the entire world, that's not bad. You know, obviously we don't want them like casting spells on other people or anything like that, but it's deeper and more complicated than that in reality. But that's part of their path. That's part of their journey of them discovering the parts of them that exist. So this falls into shadow work, because at the core, we all have lower base energies there. We all have the capacity to darkness because it's part of being light. And so if we want to explore those darker parts of ourselves, there might be parts of our lives where we do. And quite often this happens more in our teenage years or our young adult years, where we're exploring those darker parts of ourselves. Then there is the light. Some people really take on light paths, right-hand paths. And this looks like engaging more with the lighter energies, the angelic energies. This looks like not engaging in self-destructive behaviors, not engaging in the darker things, but allowing ourselves to meditate more or pray more or be of service to others. Maybe we volunteer at soup kitchens or help out with children or homeless people or animal shelters, cleaning up trash, whatever that looks like. We're in service to the world and trying to make the world a better place, and we're really in those higher energies. But then we have this middle way over here. This is a very balanced path that I felt was taught a good bit in the shamanic path when I was in that, because you are learning. It's about learning and growth and how you evolve through these paths. You're learning to accept your dark nature, not push it away, but knowing that you can also control it, that you can balance it, that you can create a different energy with it and allow those things to be something powerful that pushes you forward rather than something destructive that hurts others or yourself or pulls you down. So there's a very balanced way to live. There's a very neutral way to live. There's a way that talks about tending your own gardens and those sorts of things and letting everything else fall into place as long as you're doing your part. There is a very balanced way. Personal note, has nothing to do with the teachings, but I used to be in the left-hand path as a young person, a very young person. I know I look so young. I'm not, though. A very young person, teenage years, I was on a dark path. There was a lot that I was learning about the world and the darkness involved in it and what people are capable of. And then going through my healing work, I was in that integrated path where I understood the darkness that was there, the darkness that could be in me, the things I'm capable of, and the things that I want to be. The good things, the helpful things, the light things. And I thought, this is the path to be on. This is the best path there is because you have the best of both worlds. Right here, you want to be the best of both, right? This is the best path. And then I realized as time kept going and I went more and more and more through my own healing work, I don't get to choose that. That's part of my destiny. My destiny in this particular life is to have evolved through those so I understand them, but to work in a right-hand path. I'm meant to work with angels. I'm meant to work with the lighter energies. I'm meant to be of service to you and to the world and to the earth and to the animals and the people. I'm meant to be on the right-hand path, really learning how to control my urges and baser natures. If you knew me back in the day, that's not me. I'm the type of person, one was my upbringing. I was brought up in a very strict household. So I got to a point where I was like, I'm going to do what I want. You can't tell me what to do. You ain't my daddy. So wild. I'm going to do what I want to do because I need to explore. I need to experience life. I'm not going to suppress who I am or what I want or my urges anymore because I need to know what life is. I need to take a bite out of it because life is juicy. It's delicious, right? But then I also learned along the way that there's danger, that things aren't safe, that these things don't serve me all the time. And so I've had those experiences. And then Source stepped in and was like, are you ready to take on your destiny now? Are you ready to step onto your right-hand path now and be the right-hand person we need you to be so that you can balance all of those dark things that you've lived through and that you've seen? We need you to be the balance, not the middle way. We need you to balance the darker things. We need you to be this person. And I was like, okay, what does that mean for me? And so then we have things come up that I have to control inside of myself. Self-control becomes a thing that we have to do when we make the decision to be higher vibrating. Keep in mind, I'm not saying that right hand and left hand, one is better. Higher vibrating is simply a vibration. And just because you're higher vibrating doesn't mean you're better than something that's lower vibrating. Okay, it's all neutral. But the lower vibrating is long and fat, and the higher vibrating is more thin and up here. So there is something to that. And they're like, we need you here. There's so much of this. We need you here. And so having to learn how to take those urges and say, I see that, and that's just not for me anymore, and keep moving forward and putting that energy into building a community, into building these spaces for healing and for spiritual teachings, into building love, into building kindness, into building boundaries, into building what is a safe container for other people who need to get out of that darkness and into a safe space and just be held for a while. And that's what we're here to do. So with that organized chaos, you can apply that however you will into your own life, into what you do at your job, into society. Spirit gave me a bunch of things again. Spirit said, hey, write down these questions, and I'm not going to give you the answers till you're recording. But I did get some positive feedback about it, because apparently I do best when I'm in that organized chaos. And I understand this about myself too, because I cooked last night, and I don't always cook. My husband cooks a lot. But when I cooked last night, like, there was a plan, right? Okay, we're going to make this particular recipe that we always make when we have this particular meat. And I was like, I don't want to. I feel chaotic. I just feel like I'm going to go in the kitchen and cook whatever I want. My husband, he's a Taurus Libra. Doesn't like change, especially with food, right? Taurus, right? I was like, no, babe, don't worry. Just stay out of the kitchen. Just stay. And I ended up making this delicious chicken plate. I had no recipe. I didn't even know what I was doing half the time. At one point, I walked in and I was like, is chicken supposed to boil without water? Like, whatever. But it was delicious. It turned out great, because when you get in touch with your feminine, chaotic nature, that's your intuitive nature, right? Not needing to know everything or have everything structured and planned. When you can flow with it and feel it, it comes out better, in my personal opinion. Not always. Some things you have to have a structure to, right? Like building furniture or something. I don't know. So here are the questions that Spirit thought needed to be answered or talked about in this particular video. And I haven't looked over these yet today. Misinterpretation of teachings, unintentional manipulation for self-gratification. I don't know how I'm going to talk about that. Okay. This immediately brought to mind the Bible. I'm not a Bible thumper person. Like, I'm not talking negatively or positively about the Bible. That just was the first example that popped into my head of how things are misinterpreted, or not misinterpreted, things are interpreted differently in everybody's mind according to where they are and what they want to hear. That could go for this video. That could go for any of my videos. That could go for anybody's videos or anything that anybody is teaching. That when people show up to receive a message, they're going to try to receive the thing that they want to fill the void that they have. That's fine to do individually. The problem comes into play. It's almost like that game Telephone, where like one person says something and you whisper it to 30 other people, and then when it gets back, the message is completely distorted and different. The problem happens when this person receives this message and applies it to that person's particular needs, and then they say, I'm a preacher or a teacher also, and now I'm going to take this message and pass that on to that person. But then this person, already getting a warped version of the original message, is going to apply it where they need it. And then they're going to go on and teach it to somebody else and take that now even more warped teaching and apply it to someone else. And that keeps going on and on and on until sometimes we end up with teachings that are not completely accurate or that lack the power beneath it, the context beneath it. And that's why I think it's important for people to teach. I really do. I think it's important for people to teach, even if it's just like family members, friends, things like that, because people will question you. People will say, what does that mean? How do I do that? Why is it that way? And if you don't truly understand the teaching, you're not going to have those answers. And that means you don't know what you're teaching. And that means you don't know what you were taught. You don't really know the thing you were taught. You only knew the answer that applied to your particular situation. So, I think that it's important when we receive a word and apply it to ourselves where we need it. That's great, because that's the whole point of receiving. But if you decide to teach, let yourself know ahead of time, teaching is the thing that's going to actually teach me this word outside of myself. It's going to teach me the word itself, the power itself, whereas it does not just apply to me, but it is as a concept, what it is as an energy, what it could mean to the world. This is where we're getting outside of ourselves and taking a present and being of service to others. So that's important to do, because we want to be able to receive, to fill our bellies, to be gratified, but at the same time, we should not regurgitate what was meant for us and expect that to fill the same void in somebody else without completely changing the original power, the original message, because you can misinterpret anything, and that can keep going. The guides are like, yeah, you did an okay job explaining that. They're showing me more this sacral space. So how can we apply this emotionally and in our connections? They're like, yeah. Can you tell me what this means so I can tell it? Okay, so in shadow work. Okay, so this also applies not just to teachings, but this also applies towards our relationships. So if somebody is trying to tell you how they feel, and you take the pieces of that fill a validation in you, you're not actually hearing what they're saying. You're only getting a piece that fills you. We do this a lot in relationships because we don't want anyone to be mad at us. We want to know that everybody loves us. We want to know that everyone thinks good things about us, right? So when someone's upset or they're going through something, as long as they're not mad at us or there's nothing we have to fix, then it's like this, okay, I'll hold it enough to decide what actually applies to me in what you're speaking about. We say, oh, well, I can be like that too, in a good way. Like she's saying something good about somebody or about herself, so I can take that and apply that to me too, because I think I'm that way. And now I know how to relate to this person. But that's not actually getting the full person. That's just getting the relatability parts that validate you. You don't have to know all those things about other people because they apply to you. You don't have to mirror everyone else, and you don't need validation about yourself when you're trying to have a relationship with someone else. Let it be about somebody else once in a while, okay? Cool. I don't know who needed to hear that, but the guides were just like, say this, all right, you're good. So, let it be about somebody else. The next thing on the list, your moon sign and how you feel loved or build your life. Well, you have to look up your chart to know your moon sign. So this is your birth date, your birth year, your birth time, the city and state and country where you were born. You can look it up online or go to an astrologer who can look it up online. And when you get that moon sign, so when someone talks about your zodiac, they're talking about your sun sign, such as I am a Leo. My sun is Leo. But when you're talking about your moon sign, that's completely different. My sun is in Leo. My moon is in Capricorn. So if we're looking specifically for the moon sign, this is your feminine nature. This is your emotional nature. This is how you bond with people on an emotional level. This is how you create friendships. This is how you interact with the people around you. And understanding this part of your sign is more important probably than the sun sign, because the sun sign is just kind of how your personality comes off, whereas the moon sign is how you really feel underneath that. And looking up that sign, because they all have different maps, this can create a map to understanding yourself emotionally. For instance, it took me this many years of my life to realize that because I have a Capricorn moon, because I have a boss, daddy, workaholic type sign in my emotion space, everyone that I become emotionally attached to, I immediately interact with them as if they are my business partner. It took me this many years to understand that about myself. I understood growing up that I reacted to emotions slightly differently. Capricorn is not an overly emotional type of sign. Capricorn is very grounded. It's an earth sign. It's very structured. And honestly, cleaning wise and things like that, people talk about Virgos and how they're like such good cleaners. Capricorn is a good cleaner because they're gonna make sure it's all done, every little detail. Capricorn is where it's at. And I understood that I'm a good businesswoman. I'm good with numbers. I'm good with creating businesses. I understand that I have a very masculine mind when it comes to those things. What I didn't understand was that a lot of my frustration in my interactions or friendships is because emotionally, I expect everyone to be a business partner. I have this partnership mentality of, okay, well, I care about you now, so now we're gonna do these things together and we're gonna be on the same page and we're gonna build these things together. But not everyone is meant to be a business partner. Sometimes they're meant to be a partner, which should be more attached to my Venus, which is in Libra. So bringing in balance and yin yang and stuff like that. So there's a difference in your moon sign versus all of your other signs. So if you want to understand more about yourself, look up your zodiac chart, go to that moon sign, and just know that that's how you emotionally feel or attach to people or work through things. And I don't have time to look up all of the zodiac signs right now and like give you bits and pieces on all of that. But this is how you feel loved. This is how you emote. This is how people perceive you emoting. This is important because we're talking about your intuitive feminine nature. We're talking about your emotional nature, your chaotic nature, and understanding at least this piece about yourself will help you be able to process your own life. It will help you be able to process your interactions, and then other people might be able to pick up on that and help and create that with you and build that part with you. Next thing, oh Lord, skip that one? Okay, skip that one. How animals help us love. I like that one. How animals help us love. They help us get out of ourselves. I think that we get to choose what we incarnate as in every single life. I have a personal belief that we also move up in consciousness with each incarnation, meaning we can incarnate as rocks. We can then incarnate as plants. We can then incarnate as animals. We can then incarnate as humans. But we may choose to incarnate as many different kinds of plants before we move on to animals. We may choose to incarnate as many different kinds of animals before we move up to people. And then as people, we may choose to incarnate as many different kinds of people from many different countries, from many different galaxies. And aliens are only people from other galaxies, right? So we incarnate as all of these things, but it's my personal opinion that you don't go up to incarnating as human and experiencing the large capacity of consciousness and then try to go back in as a plant, because your consciousness would be so suppressed feeling at that point, or go back in as a rock. Like, I don't personally believe that it goes backwards like that. You might, and that's great, and I love you for it. But animals have a very different nature than humans. Humans can hold a grudge for a really long time, okay? I can stub my toe on my husband's chair, and a week later I'm still mad at him for having his chair there because it hurt me that one time for 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, our brains are different. They replay things over and over and over again that are just ridiculous. Whereas animals can hurt for a second and get over it, and it's as if it didn't exist. It's as if it didn't happen, unless it becomes a repeated behavior, obviously, because they live in the present moment. Animals are so good about being in the present moment. They're so good about loving. They're so good about following their urges. And you can think about different kinds of animals as well. Cat versus dog, just for instance. My cats love to be loved. They also do not control their instincts very well. They're going to murder everything in the yard and probably bring it to me as a gift. I got a headless squirrel once, cats, a crow. I was making friends with a murder of crows, and then, next thing I know, there's feathers all in the yard because they probably caught one. So they're murderers is what they are. But they're stealthy and beautiful and very feminine in the way that they are. They simply are themselves. Dogs are very in the present moment as well. They are loving. They have a pack mentality. So they want to do what you do. They want to go where you go. They're going to react how you tell them it's okay to react. So that is a very symbiotic type of relationship if you're alpha. And we flow together in this way. So animals have so many different personalities, but they teach us about our baser urges of nature. They teach us about the cycles of nature, meaning things can happen, and when they're not happening, they're over it. They can teach us about love, forgiveness, transcendence, while at the same time being in those earthy vibrations, which are lower vibrating. Earth has negative ions. It's a lower vibrating thing that's associated with our root space and our feet. So they can teach us about the light sides and the dark sides of those lower vibrations. And that's loving. Some of it's loyal. It's connecting. And when we as humans work with animals, we can pick up some of those things and learn about forgiveness or letting things go. We can learn about loyalty. We can learn about all the things that animals teach. But how it serves us is it gets us out of our own minds. It gets us out of this introspection that we seem to have. Because I don't know about you, but a lot of humans, if they have free time, they're going to be thinking. And most of the time what we're thinking about is ourselves. I'm thinking about how I may have did this thing wrong, or how I should have done this thing differently, or how I could do this thing next. We're overthinking every situation. But what if we were serving with that energy instead? What if we went outside in nature and started communicating with the birds? What if we started putting out food for the animals? What if we started creating shelters for the animals? What if we went to the animal shelter and started volunteering? You can feed the animals there. You can socialize the animals there. There's a lot that animals need. And here's the kicker. There's a lot that animals need because we as humans domesticated them and then abandoned them. I'm going to leave that one right there. We needed to control things, to have power over things, to domesticate things. Pigeons, for instance. Pigeons. We're the ones who brought them to the United States. We're the ones that domesticated them and trained them to take our messages places, and then we had no use for them anymore. So now there's pigeons literally everywhere, and they don't have a job anymore. So that's fine. Their ancestors were, for our personal use, they were our telephones, and now they have no purpose. So be nice to the pigeons. Give them some food, or at least just send some light their way as you're passing them on the streets. And it's the same thing, in my opinion, with dogs. We domesticated them because we want those companions. We long, something in us longs for that sort of pack mentality of old. Something in us longs for that companionship, for that loyalty, for that undying trust. But then there get to be so many of them, and they don't have homes, and they don't necessarily know how to take care of themselves anymore. They can't just, seriously, that's my thought, is why can't a dog just go kill something and eat it if it's free? But I have literally seen dogs out there walking the streets that look like bones, skin and bones, because they don't know how to hunt anymore. Not all of them, some of them do, but there's this domestication that has happened. And so they have trouble fitting back in to the circle of life. And when that happens, it's our job to do something about it, to clean up after either our own irresponsibilities with owning a cat and not getting it fixed and now it has kittens, or to clean up from our ancestors who decided it was a great idea to domesticate all of these animals and breed them, and now they don't have homes and they can't take care of themselves. So there's something to service that also opens the heart space. There's something to service that reminds you it's not all about you, that reminds you that you're not the purpose of the entire planet. Because we're all working towards our own purpose and understanding our own destinies and what we're here for and who our personal power is inside of ourselves. Because a lot of us are like that. A lot of us have been through traumas and been beat down, and we're trying to heal and understand our place in the world and how we can be important. And that's great, mama. Be important. But also get out of yourself, because it's not all about you. There's an entire world out there. There's homeless people that we could help. Even if we can't bring them home or ultimately be responsible for them, you can help them in some capacity. Anything that we do in service is heart opening. Anything we do that's selfless adds to your true nature of self. We start to get so into building on ourselves and who we think we are and what we should be doing that we begin to create something hollow, because there's nothing of substance in there. It's just us. We can breed everything else out and just have us, and it's going to shatter eventually, because we're meant to be part of the whole. We're meant to be connected. So we have to experience other people. We have to be of service to other people. We have to be of service to the animals. We have to tend gardens. We have to communicate with everything in life in order to be life, in order to be nurtured and nourished and healthy and lush. That is who we are at the core. We're actually selfless at our core. That's what our nature really wants to do, whether or not we feel like we have the energy to do it. So Animals help us open our hearts and get out of ourselves, to get out of our own minds. Now they're wanting me to go back up to that last one, which is, do you trust yourself? This is talking about resentments, depending on other people, lack of help, fear of incapability or failure, never reaching our dreams. Yeah. Do you trust yourself? I think everything that we just talked about in this video ultimately led up to this question, because we talked about life being that chaos, being that organized chaos. There's the structure, there's the safe space beneath, so that we can run around and have all of these experiences and learn who we are and learn what our bodies can do, while Source is keeping us in that safe container. Okay, kids, go run along now for a certain amount of time, and then I'll bring you back. And while we're having these experiences, that's what we're learning. We're learning, can I trust myself? Am I Source energy? Am I everything that I want to be? And the more that we are of service, the more we open our hearts, the more we experience, the more we connect, the more we realize the answer to that is yes. I trust myself because I know what the world is capable of, and I can place boundaries there now. I know what I'm capable of, and I bring elements of self-control to that because those things don't serve me and I don't want to hurt others. I can trust myself to give, to keep an open heart, while at the same time expressing exactly what I feel and what I feel to be in alignment with love without crossing the line. I can trust that about myself. I don't have to depend on others to do that for me. And if we feel any sort of resentments, it's probably because we aren't communicating the thing that we actually feel we want or need. A lot of resentments come from a lack of using the voice, a lack of that expression. So allowing ourselves to unlock our own cage, because if we have a resentment, we're always going to blame someone else. We're always going to say, this is so-and-so's fault, or this is happening because of this. We're never our first thought is never, how am I keeping myself from expressing what I need to express right now? That's usually not our first thought. Open your own cage, darling bird. Open it and fly and express yourself. Allow that to be there. We don't have to depend on other people to be the person we want to be. Other people's decisions are ultimately not going to sway your decisions. Ultimately, they're not. Other people's actions are not going to ultimately determine where you end up. Only you have that power. Only you have control over your personal path, your destiny, your expressions, your actions, and your reactions. And we strive really hard not to react. Queen, remember, we don't react. We ingest it all. We chew on it for a minute. And then we express however we express without crossing the line, because we are chaos in a safe container. We know how to get people's attention without destroying the thing that we're trying to build. We know how to create change and bring awareness to the things that need to change without becoming the thing that we're trying to change. This is when we can know, I can trust myself. I am capable of big things without self-sabotaging. I am capable of being successful and knowing that I'm worthy of that success. I am capable. I am worthy. I am love. And it all comes back to love. Maybe love is organized chaos. Who knows? I really like that one. Okay. I don't know what they want me to say with this. They're saying success as an anecdote, like the word that means story, anecdote. Success as an anecdote. Well, a success story. A success story. So am I supposed to give an example of a success story? Yeah. So an example of a success story. I'm not sure where this story is going to go, but they do want me to give an example of a success story. And the memory, for some reason, that keeps coming to my mind is not the first time that I met an angel, but when an angel came to me to tell me what I was going to do. I've been asked before, like, how did you know you were going to do what you were going to do? Like, did you sit and think about it a lot and just decide? And my honest answer was, no, I kind of just felt like it happened. You know, anything that I did, I just felt like kind of happened. It wasn't like oh, I'm so excited to do this thing and I'm going to go do it now. It was just like okay, this is what you're doing now kind of thing. You know, I had angels coming to me when I was a young child telling me, you're going to be this. And I would get really scared and say, no, I'm not. I'm not going to do that. But there's this particular time that an angel came to me and told me something I was going to be doing. And I got on my hands and my face on the floor crying, please, God, no, I do not want to do that thing. That sounds really scary. And I don't know if I'm capable of it. And I did it anyways. Step by step. I was supported from the other side the entire time. I just in that container of so many years while I did this particular thing, I know I cycled through all three of these paths, left hand, middle, and right, evolving through all of them. I was going to say making mistakes, but looking back, I don't think there were mistakes. I think that those were things where I was exploring the left-hand path or the integrated path. And that ultimately brought me where I needed to be. So not mistakes, but explorations. There was a lot of growth. There was a lot of learning. And through that process, I became the person I needed to become. Not in the middle of that container, but from the time it took me to be told, I'm putting you in this container, Mary, and for me to do all the years of being in that container to finally get to the point where I was like, kick in the bucket, I'm done with this container, then was when I realized, oh, I'm the person I want to be now. I'm not that same person. And from here to here took many, many years, but from here to here, being two completely different people, a month. In a month, I was a completely different person from that side of the container. And this is a success story. Because sometimes when we're being guided or called or pushed into something that, like, all of our shadows are going to come up, where we're like, oh, I don't know if I can be successful. That seems like a big thing to do. I don't know where I would start. I don't know the path ahead of me. And that's the point. Spirit is saying, honey, I've got you in a safe container. But when you're dropped in there, it's going to feel like chaos. And you can make all the free will choices you want. I want you to explore. I want you to flex your muscles. I want you to run around and learn who you are and what you're capable of and use your imagination. Build things on your own. Do it. Go do it. And that's what Spirit's having you do in there. But there will come a time when this too will end, because all cycles start and begin. And at the end of that cycle, you're going to look back and realize, I am now a success. That thing didn't make me a success. That thing wasn't my success. But the exploration and the learnings and the building and the becoming through all of that makes me successful now, because success simply feels like knowing that I'm who I want to be. It's accomplishing me. Your goals may not ever be completely obtained until the end of your life, because we always have new goals. The goals you had 30 years ago, you don't have now. You have a completely new set of goals, and that's the human condition. But success isn't contingent on our goals. Success is contingent on who we believe we are and how happy we are with ourselves and how much we trust ourselves. So in this life of chaos, I today am not praying you find peace, but for today, I'm praying that you find growth, success, and love. We have Nevada Smith coming up with her song Raining Light. So stay tuned and let yourself open. Let yourself just feel that music coming in and expressing. If you want to dance, if you want to move a little bit, if you want to just feel, whatever comes up, allow yourself to express that and just to be present with it. Bye.
Here comes the rain falling down on my face. It reminds me of another time, a secret, sacred space, a spiritual domain, a place where we feel safe, a place where we reign in sovereignty. In sovereignty. In sovereignty. Shantay na o ikan he itane ita o ikarachu hey kana iya hey kana iya Shante na Shantina, I allow this sound frequency to activate your dormant DNA. Allow this moment right here we innately recreate to open our gates and falling down on your crown, this chakra, we will rain down. Allow the activation, ascension of new vibrations to remind you who you are. This is the time. We will honor all our scars. This is the time. We remember we are not apart, connecting to the divine and the other places we come from the stars. We are born from the stars. From dust we came, and to dust we go. From dust we came, and to dust we will go. From dust we came, and to dust we will